Uncertainty is one of the most uncomfortable experiences in human life. We want to know what will happen, whether our plans will succeed, whether the people we love will remain safe, and whether the future will reward our effort. Yet life rarely gives us guarantees. Jobs change. Relationships shift. Health becomes fragile. Even our most careful plans can be overturned by events we never saw coming. Uncertainty creates anxiety because the mind tries to solve a problem that cannot yet be solved, rehearsing painful outcomes and searching endlessly for reassurance. But the Stoics offered a different approach. They did not believe uncertainty could be eliminated. They believed it could be faced with courage, discipline, and clarity. Stoicism is not emotional numbness, blind optimism, or passive acceptance. It is the practice of directing your energy toward what you can control while refusing to be ruled by what you cannot. The Stoic response to uncertainty begins with one simple distinction: some things are up to us, and some things are not. Epictetus taught that our judgments, choices, values, and actions belong to us. Other people's opinions, the final results of our efforts, unexpected events, and the future itself do not. Anxiety grows when we mentally take responsibility for things that were never fully ours to command. Imagine preparing for an important interview. You can research the company, practice your answers, arrive on time, speak honestly, and present yourself well. But you cannot control the interviewer's mood, the strength of the other candidates, company politics, or the final decision. If your peace depends entirely on getting the job, you place your emotional stability in the hands of outside forces. The Stoic alternative is to judge yourself by the quality of your preparation and conduct. The outcome matters, but it does not define your character. The Stoic asks, "What is my responsibility in this moment?" That question cuts through the fog of uncertainty. It turns the mind away from endless prediction and back toward purposeful action. You may not know what will happen next month, but you can decide what kind of person you will be today. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to return to the present task. As Emperor of Rome, he lived with war, disease, political betrayal, and constant pressure. His mind became steadier because he trained himself to meet the reality directly in front of him. Anxiety often lives in imagined time. It drags us into a future that has not happened and asks us to suffer in advance. The Stoic response is not to deny future risks, but to refuse unnecessary suffering before the moment arrives. Seneca observed that we often suffer more in imagination than in reality. A feared event may never happen. If it does, it may be less terrible than expected. And even if it is difficult, we may discover strength, support, and options that were invisible while worrying. Stoicism separates useful concern from useless panic. Useful concern leads to preparation. Useless panic leads to repetition. If you are worried about losing your job, useful concern may lead you to update your resume, reduce expenses, learn a new skill, and reconnect with professional contacts. Useless panic keeps you awake imagining humiliation, poverty, and failure without taking action. Both begin with the same uncertainty, but only one produces strength. The Stoics also practiced negative visualization. At first, this may sound like the opposite of reducing anxiety. Why imagine loss when the mind is already worried? The difference lies in intention. Anxious imagination is uncontrolled, repetitive, and catastrophic. Stoic visualization is deliberate and practical. You briefly consider what could go wrong so you can appreciate what you have, prepare for challenges, and remind yourself that hardship can be endured. You might ask, what if this plan fails? What would I do next? Who could I contact? What resources would remain? What lesson could I carry forward? By answering calmly, you transform vague dread into a manageable response. Uncertainty feels most frightening when it appears shapeless. The mind says, everything could collapse. Stoic preparation gives the fear boundaries. Perhaps one plan could collapse. But not everything. Your judgment remains. Your ability to choose remains. Your capacity to begin again remains. This is why Stoic confidence differs from confidence based on favorable circumstances. Ordinary confidence says, I know things will work out. Stoic confidence says, I do not know what will happen, but I trust myself to respond with courage and reason. Another essential Stoic practice is accepting reality without adding a second layer of resistance. When something unwanted happens, the first pain comes from the event. The second comes from thoughts such as, this should not be happening, I cannot handle this, or, my life is ruined. The Stoics try to remove that second layer. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means recognizing that the present moment is already here. Arguing with reality does not reverse it. It only consumes the energy needed to respond. Suppose a flight is cancelled. Frustration is natural. But once it happens, reality has changed. You can spend the next hour raging against what should have happened, or look for another route, contact the people waiting for you, and decide how to use the delay. The cancellation is not under your control. Your response still is. This principle becomes more important in serious situations. When illness, loss, or betrayal enters life, Stoicism does not demand an instant smile. Grief and fear are human. But even in pain, the Stoic searches for the next honorable action. Perhaps it is asking for help, resting, telling the truth, or simply enduring the next hour without abandoning one's values. Stoics also reduce anxiety by remembering that certainty is not required for action. Many people postpone decisions because they are waiting to feel completely sure. But complete certainty rarely arrives. Every meaningful choice contains risk. The Stoic does not ask, can I guarantee success? The Stoic asks, is this choice reasonable, ethical, and worthy of my effort? You cannot know whether a new business will succeed. You can study the market, manage risk, act honestly, and work diligently. You cannot know whether a relationship will last forever. You can communicate truthfully, choose carefully, and love with integrity. You cannot know whether your health will always remain strong. You can care for your body, seek guidance, and appreciate the life available today. Stoicism replaces the impossible demand for certainty with a commitment to good judgment. It also teaches us to examine the stories we tell about uncertain events. Events themselves are often neutral until the mind labels them. A delayed response becomes rejection. A mistake becomes proof of incompetence. A change in plans becomes a sign that everything is falling apart. The Stoic pauses before believing the first interpretation. Ask yourself, what do I actually know? What am I assuming? Is there another explanation? What action would still be useful even if my fear were true? These questions create distance between the event and the emotional reaction. They do not erase anxiety instantly, but they prevent anxiety from becoming the unquestioned ruler of the mind. A Stoic life is built through repeated practice, not a single insight. When uncertainty appears, begin with a simple routine. First, name the facts without exaggeration. Second, separate what you control from what you do not. Third, choose one useful action. Fourth, accept that the outcome may remain uncertain. Finally, return your attention to the present. Anxiety thrives on complexity, endless possibilities, and mental noise. Stoic practice narrows the field. What is true? What is mine to do? What can be released? The deepest Stoic lesson is that uncertainty does not make a meaningful life impossible. In fact, uncertainty is what makes courage possible. There is no courage where outcomes are guaranteed. There is no patience where nothing is difficult. There is no wisdom where every answer is known in advance. The goal is not to become someone who never feels anxious. The goal is to become someone who is not commanded by anxiety. You may still feel your heart race before a difficult conversation. You may still worry when the future is unclear. But you can learn to act without waiting for fear to disappear. You can carry anxiety without giving it control of your direction. The Stoics understood that life is unstable. Fortune changes, people change, and circumstances change. But character can become steady. Your values can become an anchor. Your attention can return to the present. Your choices can remain your own. You do not need to predict every storm. You need to learn how to steer. When uncertainty enters your life, remember this: the future is not yours to control, but the person you become while facing it is still being shaped by your choices. Meet the unknown with preparation, acceptance, and courage. Do what is yours to do. Release what was never yours to command. And then take the next step.